5. Don't be afraid of change. Face it, the only change most of us like is the kind we find under our lazy boys. In part, this is because some change is obviously bad, like getting in a car accident or being thrown out of the house by our parents because we refuse to get a job, even though we're 27. Strangely, even though lots of change is good, like when the doctors finally saw the cast off your leg, or your boss gives you a raise and a promotion, humans and cartoon characters tend, on the whole, to fear change. The times when change sucked tend to loom large and bias our thinking. Let's use an episode of Spongebob to explore the two big factors that might lie beneath this bias. It all starts in the underwater habitat of Sandy Cheeks, squirrel and friend of Spongebob. It's never clear whether Spongebob is fully aware that Sandy is female, despite the fact that she wears bikinis on occasion. Since Spongebob is watched by children as well as adults, romance and sex are kept to a tasteful, illusional minimum. Sponge and Sandy have tea parties, but they also practice karate together, and when they spar, Sandy usually wins. In this episode, Sandy is going on vacation. She asks SpongeBob and Patrick to take care of her land-type pet, Wormy. This particular worm lives in a jar on a twig, not in the ground, which is our first clue as to what's going to happen. Sandy leaves with carefree goodbyes. Patrick and Sponge find inventive ways to play with Sandy's little pet and end the day rhapsodizing over their love for their new best friend. When they return the next day, instead of Wormy, they find a butterfly in the jar. And they startled. The butterfly flutters from the jar. Startled, becomes confused as bits of the chrysalis at the bottom convince the two worried pet sitters that the butterfly killed Wormy. As the butterfly lights on SpongeBob's helmet full of water, which he must wear in the air-filled dome, its bizarre features are greatly magnified. A hooking proboscis and eerie compound eyes. Startled and confused, become scared. After running around in panic, SpongeBob takes out his trusty soap bottle and blows a bubble that captures the monster, as he and Patrick call it. In this bubble, the butterfly escapes the dome. First, the Krusty Krab diner and then the whole of Bikini Bottom are terrorized, not by the butterfly so much as by the hysterical panic-mongering that's spread with share the pain relish by SpongeBob and Patrick. Of course, we humans would never act like SpongeBob and Patrick did when they saw the butterfly. Change is all around us, a true constant in life. We've learned from our many experiences with it that it is not automatically to be feared. For example, if a helicopter suddenly lands on our lawn and 3 or 4 people come rushing at our door and pound on it, we do not hide under our beds or reach for the shooting iron, or reach for the shooting iron. We open the door and cry out in glee, and accept the big check for $10 million from Publishers Clearinghouse that is going to change our lives forever and ever. Or, if we haven't seen the TV reenactments, maybe we fill them full of lead before they can hand over the loot. Axiom: it is not so much change we fear as the unknown. Suppose the only context in which we've seen helicopters land and people rush a house is those giddy Publishers Clearinghouse reenactments. When the choppers touch down on our lawn, we might rush out and run at the DEA agents with manic glee and get shot full of holes by the deadly weapons they have brought along, because they fear the unknown too. Discharging maniac suspect. And then it turns out they've come to the wrong house and everyone is very sorry. Except us. Because we're dead. See what can happen when you don't know? Some slightly more common examples. You need to move to a different town, or you're starting a new job, or you are about to meet for the first time your half-brother, the ex-army sniper your long-gone father produced in his fourth marriage. Or, in order to get that first date, you have resigned yourself to the fact that you must go up to the object of your desire and ask for it. Well, maybe you'll just stay in your old town. As you get nearer and nearer to deciding on the new job, the old job bites less. When your half-brother rings the doorbell, you lie very still on the bathroom floor and don't answer. Rather than risk rejection, you resign yourself to a life of lonely celibacy. Fear of change, fear of the unknown. The cure for fear of change, which is really fear of the unknown, is knowledge, both of the unknown and of yourself, and how your brain works in these situations. Knowledge is obtained by studying and learning. Bummer. We're scared of that too. But here you are, already reading this. So just read on a little further and get a valuable tip on fear of the unknown. 6. Go away closer. Most of life's looming changes aren't Publishers Clearinghouse checks or being shot dead by DEA agents, but somewhere in between, with potential for both harm and good. Again, boring old science to the rescue. The people that have studied mixed bag changes, which are the most problematic ones, have found that the behavior of humans facing such possible change can be illustrated with a simple machine called a stymie petcatulator, which you can easily build at home with a few pieces of plywood and a common house cat. Cats larger than a house cat are not recommended. Anyone who has a pet cat has seen it stroll over to be petted and then stop, maddeningly, just out of arm's reach. It is helpfully illustrating the freeze point, even without the bother and expense of building a stymie petcatulator. While the cat is farther away, it imagines the nice feeling of your fingers scratching its head. as it gets closer, it begins to fear that you will pick it up and dress it in doll's clothes and take flash pictures that will blind its sensitive retinas for an hour. It freezes. That's us, trying to decide whether to take out that second trust to build separate bedrooms for our kids. Whatever change we both want and fear, as we are farther from it, we want it more than we fear it. This causes us to approach it until the fear line crosses above the want line, and suddenly we fear it more than we want it. Why? No one knows. It's just the way we are. We could say that when it comes to the crunch, freeze point, humans tend to be more scared of pain than hot for reward. That describes it, but doesn't explain it. The important thing to know is that it is natural. As you get closer to the change you both want and fear, to fear it more and want it less. Clinging to this knowledge is what enables you to boogie on past that freeze point and close the deal. Because you will have read this book, you'll know that the logic that caused you to want the thing in the first place probably hasn't changed, and that your fear is increasing because this is what happens when the human nears the freeze point. So, instead of lying there, paralyzed on the bathroom floor, you muscle up and answer the doorbell. Or not, it's up to you. The freedoms for which our forefathers shed their precious blood include the freedom to be a yellow-bellied coward. Is this a great country or what? The other thing, besides the above tip, that will help you pass the freeze point is, as noted earlier, more knowledge about the change itself. The more you can find out about the thing you want and fear, the better the decision you make when you reach the freeze point. If you need further inspiration, SpongeBob and Patrick did seem to learn a lesson from the wormy butterfly experience. In another episode, they rejoice when an egg they have been tending hatches into a chick. Leaving aside the likelihood of underwater chickens, maybe they are pleased because they feel the chick is cute, whereas their distorted view of the unknown butterfly was scary. Or maybe it's because Mrs. Puff, their boating school instructor, prepared them in advance, off-screen, for the hatching. Learning from a teacher is something we all resist, at least to some degree. But the bottom line is, whether we learn from experience, or from a book, or from a teacher, or a shrink, knowledge of the way our minds work and of the change we're looking at is the best way to reduce fear of change and take the plunge you were sure at the start would bring you greater happiness.